Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Right, well, if I get started. So welcome back to another episode. Today we're on tour in the lovely Royal Oak in Mellor, and it's very beautiful. Loving the hospitality today, bit of food and coffee and drink. Our guest today is Wayne Jones OBE. Has a fascinating story from starting working life as a apprentice all the way through to running a part of a business, €4 billion business, and getting an OBE, speaking before Barack Obama at COP26 and things like that. So really excited to hear from him, and here he is. Hello.
Hey, James. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Good. So yeah, there's quite a lot to go out there, isn't there? Well, what's you up to at the moment? Let's start there.
Yeah. So since leaving the Volkswagen Group, I've got my own consultancy business. So I'm basically super varied. So I'm working with universities, for example, Huddersfield University, on change management, leadership, etc. Working with the Trafford College Group, who are really inspiring and trying to connect with employees in a better way than maybe they did in the past. And then working with private equity. So big private equity companies that are looking at big investments in Europe, particularly in the green space, but mainly industrial spaces. Do quite a bit of kind of after dinner speaking and change management and leadership speaking. So yeah, it's super varied.
Busy.
Yeah. I'm trying to control it a little bit.
Yeah,
I'm going to be busier than when I was working full time. Yeah. So
what I didn't realize is you just coming off the plane this morning from China.
Yeah. So I flew out to Shanghai on Tuesday and flew back this morning. So it was a bit
just
of a
for
rapid
me.
trip.
Just
for you, James.
Just to come on the podcast. So excited. So the initial apprenticeship you had, what was that?
Yeah. So actually, when I left school, I started on back then, and I'm showing my age, but they had these training schemes. I think if you look back, it's basically to get the unemployment figures down. So the first one was called the YTS, a youth training scheme. 25 quid a week. Really showing my age now. Didn't really last long on that one, but then did kind of an engineer industrial training board at British Aerospace in Woodford, and that was pretty good because even though it wasn't a full-time position, you actually did exactly the same as a full-time British Aerospace apprentice. Okay. So, you could then, and the idea was you did that kind of basic training. Hopefully you got some interviews and hopefully you got permanent employment, which I subsequently did. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think do you ever look back at that and think, actually, I learned quite a lot in that first role? And
absolutely I did. Yeah. And, I actually believe that my qualification in apprenticeship is as important as my degree or my MBA or whatever, because it just kind of gets you an understanding how, people in the workforce, blue collar workers, as they call them in Germany, tick, etc. So it was a great background. Yeah.
So how does it develop then from, some people maybe think there's a ceiling if you start in an apprenticeship and you get to a certain level and you can't get any higher. It seems like that didn't happen for you.
Yeah, I think that's quite true. And I think particularly in kind of the Northwest, that kind of, industrial background kind of stuff, because then I got a full-time apprenticeship at Modern Platt in Newton Heath.
Okay.
Which was, moving from kind of, that kind of general industry training to actually specific, then working on pumps that were going to end up on oil rigs, etc. So that got a little bit more interesting. And that's when I kind of looked around. I mean, this is the 80s, and British industry in the 80s was, I would say, archaic. And I think that was what kind of started to think about leadership, how we were led as guys that were on the shop floor back then, and how there's a disconnect between management and the workforce, And I think if I look back now, I think that was some of the things that kind of stuck in my brain to think about the future. And then, of course, like anybody, you get lucky and somebody spots you and you have a mentor. And I can go through then the next steps if you like.
Yeah. Fascinated by the idea of mentorship.
Yeah.
I think people you meet can really have a huge effect on your career and how they behave. How are they someone you aspire to be like? Do you, probably use a million sayings every year from ex-managers that are good. Is there any one in particular that you kind of think back on?
Yeah, there's two. And the first one, I was on the shop floor. A guy called Dr. John Hughes. Of course, you a PhD back then when you're only 18, 19. Seems to be, but kind of came across him and suggested, because then I did my day release at Stockport College. I had an Order National Certificate in ONC, I had an HNC, a National Certificate, and basically was saying, hey, there should be a role if you're in a more analytical kind of area. Yeah. So he kind of moved me into the office area, but insistent that I did a degree day release. And back then, James, I didn't want to do a degree day release, but it was kind of, that's the job, but this is the criteria to get the job. And, so I carried on doing my my degree in a day release, which is a great program, and I think even nowadays it should be it should be more, because you're getting paid. Your 4 days at work and 1 day at college or uni. Two, you kind of accepted in the workforce a bit more. Unfortunately, sometimes a graduate's a bit of a stigma, knows everything, nobody ever sees you. They just thought, I think I had a day a week off. And three, of course, the company sponsored it. I mean, back then it was quite, the contract was, if you passed your exams, we'll pay for you. Right. We'll pay for your degree. If you don't, then you've got to pay it back. So I guess back in the 80s, that's an incentive, isn't it? Yeah. So he was great with me. And then actually quite interesting, because I was in the offices doing analytical, working out size of base plates and thermodynamics and all kinds of clever things. I'm thinking, this ain't for me. Yeah. And he was smart, and he realized this wasn't for me. So then he said, right, we've got a support function role for you. So when the kit's supplied around the world, sometimes it doesn't work as it should do. So normal commissioning engineers deal with the assembly stuff, but if it's vibration, temperature, or some dynamic issue, then you can go and do that. So the first job I ever got, 21, offshore India. Right. And I always remember when I came back 6 weeks later that it can't get any worse than offshore India, because I was pretty ropey back then. Yeah. But it was unbelievable experience. Even just the travel to get to India, then to get in a helicopter and fly 120 miles off Mumbai, and then understanding how we fixed the kit, and now I mean, there was no telephones, there was no communication. You kind of, you have to do it on your own, if you like, with a team of engineers. So, super interesting that was. Yeah. So he was quite, he was quite a mentor at that time at a young age, to say there's an opportunity for you. Yeah.
And presume that the leadership interest kind of came from that, did it?
Yeah. I mean, he was a very kind of technical engineering guy, but obviously leading teams around the world, engineers. So I've went all over the world, Vietnam, Norway, the Middle East, etc. Yeah. And always I'm in a small team, and then, it was good because you come from that kind of practical background, you could kind of work with them and stuff. So when I then came back out, I was responsible for a small team, mother and plant in the engineering area. Then there was a takeover. It was quite an acrimonious takeover by a competitor. This guy, Dr. Johnny, left and joined the competitor, a company called Sulzer, a Swiss company. And then 6 months later, he came knocking, and I went over to Sulzer. And I think from a management point of view, that was the one that really ignited my career.
Yeah. The skill set from working on the shop floor to management's very different. Did you, how was that for you?
Yeah, and I think, a small team at Mother and Platt, but then a bigger team at Sulzer. So then I had I think really the most influential person in my career, a guy called Keith Dow from Barnsley, tough as anything, but in the right way. Obviously, again, like mentors do, like I did later on in my career, you start to see maybe a bit of a spark in somebody. So sent me off to an assessment centre for a big job. Was like the service director for the Europe, Middle East and Africa, Swiss company, quite ageist. So I was only 30 then, and they thought, let him go to the assessment centre for the experience. So there was 2 internal candidates, 2 external candidates, and me. And bizarrely, James, it only worked out, but I came top of the five, and and obviously I was a bit maybe overly confident back then. And,
I can't imagine.
And Keith was the perfect guy to put me. I can even remember walking in his office, and he said something like in his Barnsley twang, "Congratulations, lads! You've surprised everybody. We didn't think you were that intelligent. Already you're on your toes." He said, "And first of all, no salary increase. Car's the same. And if by some strange luck you're here in 6 months, might have a look at it. See you later." And of course, I walked out of his office with kind of, I want to prove. So he knew the competitive element, and I didn't know him that well then. But a year later, when I got to know him a bit more, I said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Well, obviously you were 30, coming in thinking I've got a big job and this, that, and the other." So he was brilliant for me at that time, and I still speak to him now. In fact, I met him a week and a half ago. And he still says things like, "Can't believe you ended up with a bigger job than me," and this kind of stuff. So, but he's absolutely inspirational guy.
Yeah. Sounds like a Brian Clough story where you don't get too above your boots.
Yeah, and I look back and I probably he wasn't wrong at that stage. Yeah.
So, obviously you've had that experience from having the apprenticeship yourself, and clearly you took that with you going through, and see that as a really important thing for people to be involved with, because from what you've told me, that's the reason the OBE came about.
It is, yes. I mean, I firmly believe everybody should have the right to do a degree in this country. There's absolutely no issue with that. Okay, how that's funded, I think, is a very topic that needs discussing in more detail. But not everybody's suited to go to university, and also, as a UK economy, we need a breadth of people. For example, now we've got massive shortages of welders. So how do we square that circle, if you like? So I think that apprenticeship route's a fascinating one. And then, of course, later on, I was lucky enough when I was at the Chamber of Commerce, Lancashire Chamber of Commerce, that I could influence something on the apprentices side. Yeah, because that, I think, it was something that, and actually it's quite reassuring nowadays that you start hearing more and more people talking about it, education sector as well as the business sector.
Yeah. And so, can you tell us a bit more about that scheme then that was set up? Because there was over 1,000 apprentices. So
So
it's not a small number.
No, it's not. No. So I recognise first when I was at Sulzer, Swiss company, we had a lot of apprentices in Leeds. Then I got headhunted, went across to MAN, which was Merleys in Hazel Grove. This was we'll talk a little bit about in a bit later about the restructuring there, but then German company and got exposed to the headquarters and was just fascinated by the number of apprentices that they have in the German system, and the way it's funded, and the fact that in the UK division, I was MD at that time, they'd never had apprentices for 10 years. So I immediately employed, I think it was 10 apprentices back then. And then, kept that going because, you need it anyway, just for the dynamics of a workforce, particularly in engineering. You've got older guys that are going to retire, so you need to bridge that. But of course, as engineering changes, you need that young mindset, the digital revolution, the environmental, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, I've done all that and done the restructuring. And then I think it was October 15. It was October 15 that I got asked to go and lead the entire company. And in that same month, I was asked to be president of the Chamber of Commerce, and I got my letter from the Queen. So what we'd done at the Chamber of Commerce previous to that was, as I was president, I want to have a theme, because the easy thing to do is just be president, go around, do some speeches, shake some hands. So spoke to Clive Memot, who was the CEO, then said, "Come on, let's get a theme going, and let's get engineering, let's think about apprenticeships." And then it was quite amazing, actually, because we started on that front, and then other sectors were saying, "Well, hang on a minute, what about truck drivers? Who wants to be a truck driver? What about the social system? What about this?" And this thing just gathered momentum. Kind of had a stroke of luck because it was a coalition at the time. So Nick Clegg was the Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He visited Stockport. They were looking for companies to host him. We'd built an academy in Stockport, and he was interested in that apprentice thing. So, cut a long story short, he came across to us, and he was, I mean, you meet many politicians, some are better than the others. It's pretty impressive, and he really understood the idea, got the idea, and was quite promotive actually, and even directed some funding. So we set off on the journey with the Chamber of Commerce, and 6 months later, now maybe longer, 12 months later, we'd recruited 1,000 apprentices. Yeah, and I think all but maybe 998 got through the complete process. And these were young people from maybe not the most privileged background, and they were maybe more practical orientated than technical. And of course, this university thing was running its course, and maybe if you didn't go to uni, you was perceived as a bit of a failure. Yeah. So it was a perfect storm, if you like, and yeah, that was one of the factors that got me my letter from the Queen, along with supporting businesses and charity organisations and other stuff. Sure. Yeah, so yeah. Nice. I still thought it was a bit of a wind-up, James. Got a letter from the Queen, because I've got all mates who would find that hilarious. So I must admit, between me and you, and obviously other people now, that I did phone the number on the letter just to check it was Buckingham Palace and not something else. So yeah.
And I'm interested in the results of all that, in terms of the figures, and what benefits come from. I mean, it sounds like a stupid question, but if you've got 998 people completing apprenticeships, that's going to help things in the
absolutely
industry.
I mean, it was across every sector. It was really varied, but I think it just we need that. We need that continuity, that sustainability approach, and we need that breadth of expertise. Of course, we need graduates, but we need apprentices, because I mentioned welders now, and of course, once with a shortage in welders, what happens? We know salaries increase. So start salary now for a welder is probably maybe nearly 40 grand, but a qualified welder will earn probably 85, 90,000 pounds now. So maybe not the most attractive function, but economies need that, and there'll be people out there that think, hey, that's really smart, and something one do. So there's two benefits. One, we're not all designed the same to go to a uni and sit in lectures all day. That's just not what we're in. And secondly, the economy needs that breadth of scope. We need plumbers, we need welders, we need engineers, we need whatever. So I think that's one of the key factors to a successful economy.
Amazing. And something nice to be part of.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So you mentioned you talk a lot about leadership and things now. What's your what are your principles on leadership? Do you have any advice about?
No, I do. I mean, I think the kind of biggest experience I got about yourself as well as in industry was when I joined MAN, and we were hemorrhaging money. So I think since MAN had bought the company in 2000, they'd lost £250 million between 2000 and 2005, and I came in 2005. My first fiscal year was 75 million turnover, £48 million loss, so it wasn't a great start. But of course, a lot of restructuring costs in there. And of course, I've never been involved in something as big. I mean, it was absolutely major restructuring. 18 months later, similar turnover, 15 million profit. So we shifted it 65 million. Yeah. And of course, that's when you really understand, I think, yourself and what your leadership principles are. I mean, going through a restructuring, and people probably shy away from this in leadership. Sometimes you've got to be decisive. We can't always agree on everything. Yeah. So sometimes, and I think that's lacking in leadership sometimes, that, of course, all the coaching and connected leadership we need to do. I mean, leadership's a toolbox. You need different tools for different situations. But I think you see so many issues in businesses where you just can't get decisions. Yeah. And I always had a guy that I worked with, Keith, I mentioned, he used to say, if you flick a coin, lad, At some point, your decision is going to be 50% right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you put education into it, then maybe the 50% wrong you can half. All of a sudden, you're 75% right. 3 out of 4, unless they're massive decisions, people will much more accept a decision rather than no decision. And in fact, it's well proven even a wrong decision, as long as it's not a massive one, is better than no decision. And people just accept, well, at least he decided it and we can work around it. So I think decision-wise, I think that was one of my key principles. Treating people equally. When I got there was a separate canteen for the office staff. There was a separate canteen for the directors. The directors had the car washed every week. You know, the directors got a free newspaper. And, you know, I think this is where my apprentice background came in. Because first of all, I haven't got time to read the newspaper if we're in mud and bullets. And secondly, why should I get a free newspaper and the guy that's working on the machine tools has to buy his newspaper on the way in?
Yeah.
So stop that immediately, stop the canteen, stop the washing of cars, and tried to get, you know, the Ivory Tower of management closer to the thingy. So I used to go crazy because I used to go into work early in the morning to catch the night shift and, you know, change some of the behaviors in the night shift. Because if you go back into industry, night shift was maybe, you know, maybe have a couple of hours kip or whatever you do, but it wasn't there for that. I was there to expand the, you know, the sweat, the assets to work that. So, and then I was there when they were coming back in the next morning at 7:00 at night. So you start giving, and I think that's also a principle, that kind of visual management, you know, you lead by example, you know, I will ask you to do something that I'm not prepared to do, you know, and I think that was a big issue in that. So we unfortunately, we cleared out the entire management team, put a new complete management team in. It was very trade union organised then. I'm not against trade unions. They've had an absolute pivotal part in improving industry. But, you know, we were in 2005 then. Do we really need that adversarial approach? And so we created an employee council. So we talked about the important issues, but I'm not sitting talking about, you know, the colour of the chairs and all that rubbish. It was about important business decisions, you know, did a lot of things in harmonising salaries. We had 3 different groups of engineers, all on different wages. So harmonise being the key word, because they thought we were just going to lift it up to the one who's paid the most. So we did a huge amount in 2 years, never, ever experienced as much. And I think that really set me up for, first of all, understanding my leadership skills, what was important. And secondly, career-wise, that got me noticed in the German headquarters, if you like, yeah.
And so, it seems like communication is
absolutely.
How do you go about doing that?
I think no workforce will ever say to you, you're communicating too much. You know, and what's always laughable for me is no matter how many times you do it, and I used to do toolbox talks, I'd do State of the Nations, I would literally weekly be in front of the workforce. Somebody will always say, oh, we didn't know about that, or nobody ever told us about this, you know. So you can never, in my opinion, over communicate. Yeah.
Quite often I found you'll make up, people see things and they're not stupid. So you make up your own thoughts on what's going on. It might be completely different to what the reality is. Yeah. And that can cause murmurings and chats that are negative around the business. And then, you know, everything from morale and motivation can just go. And it's not because anything bad's going on.
Oh, and one of the other things in leadership, you've got to be in and around people. Yeah, you know, it's easy to sit in your office, but the easiest thing I used to do was come in the morning at 7:00, switch the kettle on, and walk around the shop floor, and then come back and have a cup of coffee. But you know, you're visual and you're in there and you talk to people, and then you start to feel a sense of, you know, what's right, what's not going right, what's an irritant to people, what's not so motivating, and obviously, there's always boundaries of what you can do, but quite often small things make big things,
Yeah.
Like cancelling the newspapers. It was a very small thing, but it was a big thing for the guys on the shop floor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It always amazed me that people that possibly earn the most get the most perks.
Yeah, exactly. We all just do different jobs. That's all it is.
I suppose it's similar for change then.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I guess, you know, that was, I mean, again, you know, part of leadership is being sometimes a bit consequent. And I always remember when I first started, week 1, some guy walked in and he said to me, Wayne, just so you know, I know you're coming here to change things, but I don't answer the telephone at lunchtime. And that was super interesting for me that he actually felt, first of all, the need to tell me.
Yeah.
And secondly, why didn't he? So I said, oh, what area of the business you're in? He said, oh, I'm in the sales area, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, wow. and you can have the best strategy in the world, but we all know it's that cultural thing that is, and that need for constant change. I mean, if you think of the changes that you experience in life, they're massive, yeah? I mean, I was only reading the other day that Blockbuster, some of us remember going to get a video, they were offered Netflix.
Yeah.
And they could have bought it for hardly anything. And some guy said, watching one, that'll never take off. And of course, so that change element is huge, whatever business you're in. So, that for me, that was an awakening of that there's a cultural issue here. So that took, and you can't change culture in a few months. That takes a couple of years to do that. Yeah. So, but we got that change, and what's super satisfying for me is that 20 years later, that company's still going.
Yeah.
Which maybe it wouldn't have been if we hadn't done some of the things we did. Yeah.
Yeah, culture's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have a few people on, and it's always like, well, culture's first. Culture comes first.
Absolutely.
Results look after themselves.
Yeah. And then I had the next experience, because when I was running then, so I went from that to run the global after sales business. So we ended up with 140 locations in 70 countries, and that was all about growth, super interesting. But then that's international culture, so, the Germans and the Danes and the South Americans and, the Asians. And it's fascinating how you can learn and experience those cultures. Yeah. But that job was brilliant because that's all about growth.
Yeah.
It was all about taking something, I think it was about 600 million at the time. 4 years later, we were over $1 billion, and we were celebrating because $1 billion, we had cakes, we had watches engraved. It was, we just got, when you capture motivation in a team, it's unbelievable what you can do. Motivation will always beat talent, 100% of the time. Yeah. So that was a different job, and a super interesting job. Yeah. You learn about German culture and Danish culture, and you learn every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So, working in different countries and with different cultures is really interesting. Been lucky enough to travel around quite a lot with work and meet different people, and I've never known anyone be more than friendly. It'd be anything else but friendly to me. Yeah. And it always amazes me how, if you believe what's written and told to us in the news, that people we just don't like each other.
Yeah.
And I'm always shocked to that, because wherever it's been, Middle East or Europe or Americas, it's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, people are generally fine wherever you go.
Yeah.
So that's also my experience. We always work on the extreme cultures, which is maybe the French or the English or the US or whatever. But actually, internationalization normalizes that a little bit, doesn't it? So and that's a good thing, because it brings people together without giving up on those important cultural parts that are different in certain countries. Yeah.
So, when you look back to the kid on getting his apprenticeship, and is there anything that you look back on and you think, what advice would you give that person?
Yeah, that's always a good question. I mean, I think one of the positive things that I work forward with since then, a lot of young people, in terms of, showing them the importance of engineering or the interest in engineering. And I think nowadays the tendency is to have a very specific career path.
Yeah.
And I would really vote against that. Directional is the key thing. And I think that was one of the things I didn't really aspire to, think I could do this. It was only when I kind of got on the kind of management route that I thought, actually, I think I'm pretty good at this. And, okay, that's like cockiness going in a little bit. But of course, there's loads of people that talk about leadership and write books about it. But leadership's really doing big change programs like the one I mentioned, where, of course, there's that negative side of it of cutting workforce and closing factories. But then there's the change program on the positive side, where you're opening facilities up and growing businesses. And I think the advice I would give is that don't be too structured in where you think you want to do, because there's absolutely only one guarantee: it'll never work out what you write down. It will never will. So keep it that directional. Be a bit different, take risk. I think that also we're a bit of a society of risk averse now. If you make a mistake, then you kind of, you're out, or you've got a black mark against you. I think I was lucky enough to work in companies with people that, you know, if you made mistakes, it wasn't, you know, you wasn't murdered for it, if you like. I mean, Keith nearly made me a few times, but he was always motivating that you could learn from it, you know, and it wasn't like, because otherwise, I think leadership can be stalled if we think, oh, everything's got to be perfect, and it can't be perfect.
Yeah. I always remember when we used to book our own travel. So we go and book our own travel, and you could get perks and bonuses from booking your own travel in different areas and different websites and stuff like that. So there was great. It was a little bonus for the guys who were doing the traveling. And then they stopped that and they brought it in-house to an in-house system. And at the time, I remember saying, you know, I don't get this. This is, you know, it's taking away a bit of fun that we all have and a bit of a small little bonus. What's going on? And no one would give me a good answer. In fact, there's one that said, well, this is big business. If you don't like it, you know what you can do. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So,
but that's not an answer, is it?
No. I mean, it's the reason why he stayed in his job for 30 years and not progressed, but it's a different story.
Yeah.
And a guy heard in the background, and he came over, he said, look, I was in the meeting. The reason why it's changed is a security point of view, because we've got 30 guys all around the world and we don't know where they are at any point. So if any trouble kicks off in any part of the world, we've no idea where you are. I'm like, well, there you go.
Exactly.
I don't mind now.
That makes perfect sense. Talk to people and explain to people, and then people understand. Yeah.
Small business or big business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that leadership connectivity into to people that if you're confident in what you're doing and you think the decision's right, then I think people understand it then, as long as you explain it.
Yeah. That's the thing. No one likes change, especially if the perceived result is something negative.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can communicate the reasons why, assuming that they're legitimate, then people are very reasonable.
Absolutely. I mean, you're right. Nobody likes change. And the problem with change, to actually implement it to the right level, you've got to get into that emotional change. Yeah. And that means there's a bit of fear in it. And change doesn't work unless there's a bit of fear. But we all know you can be bored and stressed, and you can be overworked and stressed, because boredom is also a stress that you don't want to. So you've got to get into and this is massive in sport, you've just got to get into the area where you're just a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah. You've got a bit of fear in you, because that makes you perform to the next level. And it's the same in business, keeping that change going is critical to business success. The businesses that succeed nowadays are the ones that are agile. They've got the ability to change. Yeah.
And that, especially, I always bring George into the conversation. We all had, in our industries, it's digital and it's changing all the time, and algorithms are changing and new technologies are coming in. So you got to be aware of changes, and what does that mean? How do we have to change in the way we work and the content we produce and things like that to do things that help the clients that are paying us money. So you have to be constantly reviewing how you're working and what you deliver and how to get by in the industry.
And that's a very personal thing, isn't it? So when I then went from running the after sales business to joining the board, it was weird for me, because on the Friday I was working for the board, and on the Monday I'm working as a board member with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And very formal. So it was Mr. Jones and Dr. Park and this, that, and the other. And they sat in certain seats, and basically you got to say to right, if we can't change, you clean the stairs from the top.
Yeah.
If you can't change, then how do you expect the workforce to change? Because we were at the time the largest diesel engine manufacturer in the world, which is a very dangerous place to be with the whole environment, things around it. And you mentioned COP26 and stuff.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, we're the largest gas engine manufacturer in the world. So that's portfolio change, that's directional change, strategic change, And that has to come from the top. And, and to do it, you've got to connect with people. So you can't be Mr. Jones and Dr. Park. You've got to be Wayne and Peter, and again, you're in the ivory tower a little bit, and you're on the board, 11th floor, all these people around the world. And let's change that a bit and get more connected.
So COP26.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So again, we were changing our product portfolio, and you can run these engines the diesel engine's quite a versatile piece of kit. So you can run them on methanol, LNG, all these kinds of stuff. So, but of course, convincing people internally is the change, and then externally is that marketing. So we wanted to change our direction because we also had equipment that in carbon capture, we could do heat pumps, we could do energy storage, all those kind of things. So, right, let's shift this. Nobody's ever thought about COP. So I went on Bloomsburg first and started talking about it, and then got an invite. Oh, you need to come to COP26. Now, COP26 was in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And it was in Glasgow, I think, 26. 27 was in Egypt. I think 26 was in Glasgow. So nightmare to get there with all the, you had to have a test at 4 a.m. and everything, but we did it all. Got into COP26. And of course, if we had such a market share in the shipping industry and we're in the power industry, we were influential. So this little company, 4 billion, 15,000 people, is a little company in the world, but we could almost decarbonize the shipping industry alone. So 3% of CO2 emissions come from the shipping industry. We had 85% market share with the big ships. So 2%, let's say, rough numbers. So we could decarbonize 2% of the shipping industry. All of a sudden, wow, this is huge. So of course you get yourself into a different field, and then that was and that was the funny thing actually, because I'm waiting to speak, and obviously this is live on TV. I think the guy told me 20 million list followers, etc. And then I saw all the security guys mooching around, and I thought, this is really serious. Walkie-talkies and everything. And then there was a guy, a really tough Glaswegian next to me, went, Wayne, that's not for you. Barack Obama speaking after you. So, but obviously they kept his pretty quiet because of security reasons, etc. So I did my bit.
Imagine it's quite hard for him to follow.
Yeah, he was struggling. I give him a few tips as well. I'll tell you one thing's better speaking before than after it. Because I stood in the wings and listened to him, and it was like, also inspirational, motivational as well, just the way he delivers things. And I mean, he literally had the audience, it's palm of his hand, just like the previous speaker.
Yeah. Well, clearly.
It was amazing listening to him. Yeah. But that kind of gave me a realization, wow, we're in a different place now. That we can really start to influence the environment across the world, which is never before. We're a manufacturing company before. Now we're a company that can decarbonize industry. I mean, that's a shift. Yeah. That's a shift.
And a huge selling point as well.
Massive selling point. And our business went from, I think at the time when I started on the board, we were 2.8 billion. And when I left 7 years later, we were nearly 5 billion there.
So where's the future of that industry going then?
So shipping, there's two things that would drive it. One is legislation. So you need the legislation that says, right, okay, we're not playing around with this. This is the rules. Secondly, infrastructure. So of course, at the moment, ships all over the world turn up at a port. They can get heavy fuel oil, but they can't get methanol or LNG, etc. So that's going to take some time.
Sure.
But if you don't start, you don't finish, do you? Yeah. So you need to do that. But I think the way to stimulate the industry then is suppliers like us saying, yeah, we can provide all the technology is there. We can do it today. And then you got the big front runners like AP Muller Maersk, like Hapag-Lloyd, like CMA, CGM, they're the biggest three probably. Yeah, probably. And they'll stimulate it because they'll say, right, I'm bringing my big vessel into your port and my engines run on LNG. So actually the engines are dual fuel, so you can run them on either heavy fuel oil and so you can run on liquid or gas basically, which is quite flexible.
Yeah, that's quite.
And then other industries like carbon capture, you can capture the carbon, you can bury it, you can pipe it somewhere, you can use it for other industries. And then we need to think about the energy sector because everybody quite rightly is focused on renewables, but when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, then, we need to think about storage and backup processes. And that's also available. It's like a big battery, if you like, but not battery as a conventional electrical battery. battery, as in storing compressed air, liquid air,
Yeah.
that you can then drive turbines with, for example.
Crazy.
Uh,
And what's the future for you?
For me,
What's the ambition?
yeah, I mean, I'm loving doing what I'm doing at the moment, because I kind of like that, talking to young people in universities and trying to bring that practical side to leadership and change, rather than, I mean, we need the theory, no doubt, but there's a practical side. We're dealing with the most combustible material on earth, which is the human being. So, it's not always easy.
Right.
So I'm loving doing that. I'm fascinated also with the investment market, the private equity that come in and want to buy companies that, it's not about just taking cost out. It's about how can we get it and improve it. So kind of like doing that side of it as well. Yeah, and just, let's see where it goes. I think I would go back into full-time employment if it's a really big job, if it was really interesting. And, I think that would probably give me a big interest. But if not, quite happy to do that kind of support thing. And I'm much more active now with the Chamber of Commerce, because I've got a bit more time with it. So I'd like to develop the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce a bit more.
Yeah.
It's the biggest Chamber of Commerce in the UK, 3,500 members. We know clearly Manchester's really the second city behind London. There's some down influence, the devolution package. So I'm doing some work with Andy Burnham's office we're trying to build a railway between Liverpool to Manchester, a fast track railway, half the times, but it's not really about time. It's about connecting industries and connecting economies. If you think about along that line, you've got Liverpool, Warrington, Manchester, then you go further afield, Bradford, Leeds and Hull. We need to invest in the northwest of England compared to the southeast all the time. So we need that political shift. Yeah.
There's some, even from, Bolton, Burnley,
Absolutely.
Preston, up that way, there's a lot up that way that manufacturing as well.
Yeah, you're right. But the key thing is, learn from HS2. I mean, HS2 was big. And first of all, it had the wrong name. It was never about speed. It was about getting freight off the motorway. So HS2, High Speed 2 was not the right name. We need to learn from that and the way we publicize it and the way we promote it.
Yeah.
And I think the other, let's eat the elephant in chunks. Let's start, connect those and then connect that line then to crew, and then you can bring in the south and then north and then east. But if like you've travelled and I have, I mean, look at the infrastructures in other countries, Asia, for example. I mean, bullet trains, and I mean, we're significantly lacking compared to our international competitors.
Yeah, they're huge,
massive. Yeah.
You just have to wait for a train to go into Manchester in the morning and know that you can't rely on that one to be there, or to, what kind of state it's going to be in. Or actually, I should say it's improved a lot.
It has improved a lot, and I think the devolution deal will help us improve further. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, I flew in from Shanghai, so I was in the lounge in Shanghai, and there's a video playing just about Manchester. And it was really great, showing, of course, the sports side of it, the business side, the tech side, the digital side, the vibrance of the city, the restaurants and the hospitality offering. And it was great to be, in Shanghai, and this big video was played about my hometown. Yeah.
Well, just travelling down this road, you can see into Manchester.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
the skyline's so different from 5 years ago. The amount of buildings. And
it's still the fastest growing city, I think, in the UK. Highest GDP in the UK from a city point of view. So.
Yeah. All good.
Yeah, all good.
Well, sounds like a good time to finish the pod. Thanks for coming on. It's been really interesting.
Super, James. Loved it. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Was it all right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it was good.
Enjoyed it. It was good.